Mr. Z, what's
Hey,
going on?
nothing much, Mr. B. What's happening?
Nothing. Just ready to talk about my most favorite topic in the world.
I know Mr. B used to be a soil judge, if you can believe it.
I was on the soil judging team.
Of the team, that's
It
right.
was pretty awesome.
It is
Let's
something
just
else.
say I was one of the coolest kids on campus. I mean, but that's just a given.
I don't know how you could get any cooler than that, Mr. B. I really don't know. Except maybe for getting an A in geology.
There you go. Doesn't get any cooler than
I
that.
guess not. All right, let's get started.
So we're just talking about basic characteristics of soil here. Okay. So first thing, when we talk about soil, we're really just talking about an interface. And when we mean interface, it's just where like all different things are interacting.
Yeah, exactly. So we have something, if we think about soil, and you probably know it as dirt, and I'm sure that you've seen it in your backyard or purchased it at the store or anything like that, and we think about how it interacts with all the different spheres. We know that plants grow out of it, so there's our biosphere influence. We know that we water it and it rains outside, so there's our hydrosphere. We know that there's rocks inside of it, and clays and sands and all kinds of stuff. And we know that the atmosphere interacts with air, etc. So all those things together produce soil.
And it's pretty amazing too because the Earth is huge, and everything that's going on the Earth is happening because of this thin little layer around the outside of the Earth, like thinner than the crust, and it's just this little veneer on the outside, and like all of our spheres are interacting right there in the soil.
Exactly.
Okay, so and when we talk about soil, there's actually a couple different parts that it's made of. And to have a healthy soil. So if you looked at a soil, a quarter of it would be air. I mean, it would just be atmosphere that's flowing in there.
And then we would have a quarter of it be water.
And then the majority of it, that's like the soil you think of when you pick it up, the stuff you can actually feel and touch, is mineral particles. And we'll talk about that in a sec. That's like your sand, your silt, your clay, gravel.
And we already talked about how it got to that point from the last couple videos. We talked about chemical weathering, we talked about physical weathering, breaking it down physically, breaking it down chemically, and a lot of that material ends up in soil.
Yeah, and those sands that we're breaking down mechanically make up part of that mineral particle. The clays we break down chemically make up the mineral particles. So like that's the majority of where that lithosphere is coming from, is that mineral part.
And then the last part there is the organic material, so things that actually are living or things that are decomposing, that have died, also goes into the soil.
And that's that humus part. It's not humus, it's humus. Just partially broken down once living material, organic material. Okay, so the next part we're going to talk about is just some real basic definitions for a visual of those mineral particles. And a lot of people use these terms without actually knowing that it's more of a sciencey term behind it.
It is. And we're going to go into a lot of depth with this when we talk about sedimentary rocks, because we'll find that a lot of them are classified by the size of grains that they're made up of.
So if we look at the different size mineral particles we have, gravel's the biggest. Okay, we're talking about like less than a 1/16 of an inch.
Yeah. And maybe about 2 millimeters or so.
And then when we talk sand, sand is an actual particle size. It's actually not really the composition, it's like how big the particle is. And so that's a little bit less than a millimeter in size.
Yep. And then we move on to silt, which is the third smallest.
Yeah, and it's something along the lines of like a thousandth of a millimeter. It's very small. If you felt it, it actually feel feel really smooth.
Yeah.
It feels almost like flour.
Yeah. And then finally we have clay.
Clay is the absolute smallest. Microscopic, you cannot see it.
Yeah.
You need a special microscope to be able to see clay. And what I always like to think about is I do them like different sizes. So like sand is like a beach ball.
Yeah.
Silt is like a softball. And then clay, we're talking like pin of a head.
Yeah.
The head of a pin.
Yeah. And we find actually a lot of clay in our soil around here in Illinois, and we'll talk about that more in class.
Cool. So I think that's the majority of what we need. Go to your class homepage, and you got a quiz waiting for you.
All right. Take care.
See you guys.